are there any common traits or habits you see between the successful people that you've worked with?
Yeah, go on the road. Most bands don't do this, particularly Canadian bands. The problem with Canada is so huge. I mean, if Vancouver was where Windsor is and Halifax where Montreal is, it would be great. In England, you got good examples. All bands tour because, everything's close together. And the same thing in the States. It's a personal contact. It's a contact situation with artists. You have to have a fan base, and you cannot get a really good fan base unless you're out there. You got to do a college circuit and so forth. And I keep saying this to all artists. And sometimes you have a band, particularly in Americana, you have a band, you do a whole band album, and they go on the road with two people. And they wonder why they're not getting any results. Well, what they want to hear is the band, see the band, because that's what the album is. So they really don't want to see an acoustic version of the same thing. You need to go on the road to get any success.
This is something I struggle with, and because it's actually interesting. If I think of some of my favorite artists that I've remained such a strong fan of them for so many years, it's usually because I've met them in person at some point, and I've had that personal connection. They've given me a hug, or we've spoken some words, and that makes them a real person, not just an untouchable, image. So
I'll give you an example. The best industry for that kind of stuff is country.
Yeah.
You've got a thing in Nashville called Fanfare where you've got booths, and all the great artists have their own booths, and you meet your favorite artists.
No way. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, you get selfies and so forth, and so on, and suddenly, they get the feel that they're part of that. Another way, of course, as an indie person, is to get money from your fans, and you put their names on the album, and stuff like that. But that only works to a certain degree. They want to see you. They want to bop to your music. If you're a rock band, they want to see you. They want to see you live anyway. And so, in your case, acoustic guitar and vocal with one member and doing the festivals. There's a lot of summer festivals, and I'm working with an artist, Tia McGrath, and they tour constantly, husband and wife team. They've toured for 10 years, and they've got now a large fan base in England and in the States, but it's hard work all the time on the road, and it's not for the weak of heart, I tell you. But,
absolutely.
From the 1920s, I talked to some old guys who worked with Glenn Miller and the Dorsey brothers back in the 30s, and they would tour constantly. And Glenn Miller was really smart because they had a hard time touring with those buses in the winter because, they weren't equipped for the winter. So what they did was they bought rail trains and sleeper cars, and they would hitch on to Kansas City, and they would hitch a ride to Chicago, and that's how they used to do it. But they would tour 6 days a week.
Amazing. For
years. And the same thing with this whole rock and roll thing back in the 50s. They had a whole festival, and, of your Motown. All your Motown stars would go to high schools, My wife, Mary Jane, grew up in Windsor, and she remembered the Temptations and Stevie Wonder going and playing at high schools. You don't do that anymore. But it was touring. It was touring constantly, and
I love that because the internet's opened up such an opportunity for artists like myself to reach such a vast audience in the internet scape, in the internet world. But you're right, and even though we can do videos and all that kind of stuff, and I do all these things because my following truly matters to me. I mean, otherwise I'm just in my basement playing guitar if I don't have my following. But I have a strong desire, and I know they do too, for me to go out, be in person, give an actual hug, play an actual song, share a moment, and I'm really looking forward to that. So thanks for the reminder.
My suggestion is that, I don't know if it still works today with Soundscape, but if you can find an area in the world that you're popular on the internet, then my suggestion is you go there and do a gig in that city. And you'd be surprised how many people show up.